Right, let's get straight into it. Piero Hincapié from Bayer Leverkusen is apparently available and apparently is looking for a new challenge. I'd imagine that's because they've won the league. I'd imagine that's because the team is moving forward. It is unusual immediately after that to leave that, but the South American would be a very good fit for Liverpool and exactly what Liverpool are looking for on that side of defence anyway. It may mean that Liverpool would move on from Andy Robertson in the medium to long term. It may also mean they move on from Kostas Tsimikas in the medium to long term. It may also be an interesting replacement for someone like Virgil van Dijk in the long run. But we can get into that, right? I think whoever comes in is going to have to earn their place in the squad, but at the same time justify that place if they are given it by Arne Slot. They are going to displace, eventually, one of these places is going to go, Virgil van Dijk and or Andy Robertson. And that's not me saying get rid of Van Dijk as a captain. That's not me saying these people don't deserve their place in the Liverpool team, blah, blah, blah. It's me saying Liverpool must prepare for transition. We're seeing the midfield move away from that destroyer-type role, or at least that profile predominantly, under Arne Slot. There will be different ways that Liverpool set that midfield up, and there'll certainly be different ways of doing that double pivot as we saw in pre-season. But Liverpool will also need to look at that back line as well. And I think we've been speaking about this for some time. A successor for Andy Robertson, a successor for Virgil van Dijk is key. Someone who can keep that side of the defence sure, as unattackable as it felt and as impenetrable as it felt in the Klopp era, in order to make us and keep us in at least the top four of the Premier League. And he is one of those players who profiles particularly well in doing that. Not only has he played in a successful team, so he brings a successful mentality, but he was also a big part of that team. And a lot of big clubs have been looking at him. I'm really interested to see who out there in the world has got the pull to get a Piero Hincapié. He is a very talented player. Not only does he play for his national team, and he plays a little bit wider for them than he does for this Bayer team, but he's able to transition between those two roles relatively seamlessly. It's actually quite interesting. When I look at some of his stats, when I look at the way that someone like him would play for our side, I think he's got the possibility of an inversion or like extending that midfield a little bit this way. He's definitely a front foot player. He's definitely more an attacking team profile. And obviously with his left foot capability, it brings him into the side and instantly makes him appealing to someone like Arne Slot because, well, Arne Slot's going to be looking for left-footed players to, first of all, challenge someone like Virgil van Dijk, club captain, so very difficult to challenge in the first place, and probably someone who challenges himself on a daily basis. So let's not act as if Virgil van Dijk is, is in need of someone to challenge him. He's done very well for a few years now without anyone challenging him, but also just someone who can step in and be as tough, dominating, sadistic, and sometimes vengeful as Andy Robertson. That sounds like this young Ecuadorian, who is still 22 years old. I think it's also worth saying that he's relatively tall for a fullback, again, or / centre-back type. And I'm certainly interested in seeing this kind of, I don't think he's Calafiori style, but he's certainly got that, the defence turned into attack style, where it's like he can turn the ball over very quickly. He can get the Bayer team back on the front foot. And let's admit it, Tsimikas is a great backup player. I don't know if anyone really sees him as the kind of player who would, in the long run, be starting for Liverpool. If Andy Robertson left, I think it would be a short-term replacement. And the fact is, at some point soon, Andy Robertson is probably going to leave. It's difficult because he's probably one of the club legends. He might even be one of the best left-backs. He goes up on the Mount Rushmore of left-backs for Liverpool, for sure. But it's still frustrating, obviously, to look at as a Liverpool fan, him moving on. Hincapié, the fact that he's played in an adaptable, title-winning side, the fact that he's still playing in a team which I think is extremely capable, despite what happened for them the other night against Arsenal. They've not had a great pre-season. I think they've had a very mixed pre-season. Again, it's pre-season, so who really cares about that? But towards the end of last season, and I think even Bayer themselves will just look at this and go, right, what is it that we're moving on from? What is it that we can do, I don't know, to improve this side? And he's certainly a talented player. He's also the kind of player I think probably wants to start fairly regularly and someone who probably will come to the Premier League and get a very, very good wage. Liverpool also need to be planning ahead. I get that we'll probably spend 51 million here, might be another 40 to 50 on someone like Hincapié. Maybe we can get him at a slightly lower price if he's pushing for a move, but I don't really think it's probably not a reasonable way to go out there and negotiate. And I also just think overall, Liverpool are in need of one more centre-back backup, probably on that side. Because if one thing is going to capsize our season or undermine elements of it, it will be a Virgil van Dijk injury, or it would also be the fact that we don't manage Virgil van Dijk's minutes properly, and we end up with an exhausted Liverpool side, again, who've played a lot of minutes, who are probably not going into a tournament next summer, but are just looking at the overall mass of games and going, right, we need something here, like I need a break. If you can bring someone in who can play those minutes, the Champions League is going to be that extended format. We've got a lot of cup competitions. I don't think we have someone who's so far presented as like the natural left-sided player that I think we're looking for to replace Virgil van Dijk or Andy Robertson or whoever it is on that side. And overall, I think Liverpool at the moment, especially considering some of the conversations I had with Joe Gomez, with Sepp Vandenberg, with possibly even people like Konate, though it looks as if he is going to extend his contract, everyone's going to be looking at their future and saying, where do I fit within the system? Where do I fit within the squad? How long is my tenure here? Will I be in the team in another 2 years, or is it worth me moving on now and putting down roots elsewhere? And is it a time when you can break with a little less pain? You know, Klopp is gone now. There'll be some Klopp acolytes within that side who are very, very faithful. And it's not to say get rid of those guys because they'll only be faithful to Klopp. Of course, they're great professionals. But it's also a good time to say, we had an amazing chapter. You were part of that chapter. Is it time to move on? Liverpool clearly anticipate Alisson at some point moving on from Liverpool. Liverpool clearly anticipate Virgil van Dijk moving on at some point. Someone said in my comments the other day, he might have another 5 years at the top. I would love it if he had another 5 years at the top. But Liverpool would be insane not to get back up for that next 5 years if he was to stay and retire at Liverpool. Liverpool would be mad not to get someone in who, if Virgil van Dijk decides, I want to finish my career where I started it, I want to go back up to Scotland, I want to do this, I want to do that. What would we then do? We'd then be in a transfer market knowing that our position of negotiation was so weak because everyone else knew that Virgil van Dijk was leaving or had already gone or whatever the status would be. And everyone would also know that we were desperate to fill that before the start of whatever season it would be or whatever the end of which transfer it would be. I think that's the frustration for me is people are speaking as if when you have a great player, you do not plan for the future. Of course, with Hincapié, we plan for the future. And it's hard to find left-sided centre-backs right now. Of course, there are probably like 5 or 6 who you can list off the top of your head and say, he could replace Virgil. Lenny Yoro came in, I think we probably would have played on the right-hand side of defence. Hincapié is also a proven talent with winning pedigree. That is a massive part of playing for Liverpool Football Club. And he's also someone who would, again, add to that South American contingent. Not that I kind of want to bunch all those people in together, but it certainly feels as if there would be a benefit to having, a squad with a shared culture, shared ideas at least, and a shared continent that they come from. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. I think Arne Slot is looking to upgrade a couple of these positions softly. That doesn't mean kicking people out of the team, getting rid of them. But I think he's certainly saying, I could probably do with this profile here. A left-footed centre-back would benefit him. Someone who can, push on a little bit down that left-hand side. What is a Calafiori role that we're going to be seeing going into the new season? Will we call it the Calafiori role? Will we call it the Hincapié role? It'll be interesting to see if these wandering centre-backs that seem to be popping up all over the place and the idea of them would work in this Liverpool side, especially alongside someone like Martin Zubimendi. Let me know in the comments below. It's just a rumour at the moment, but would you take him or would you take another option ahead of him? I'll be doing a transfer review this Friday live on the channel. Be there for that. Look forward to chatting to you guys then. Much love.